going to switch the view. There's my paper. So I have a regular size brush, which happens to be an orchid bamboo brush. To paint the cardinal, it's good to have a brush that's got hard bristles so that you can get a nice, clean, crisp outline of the feathers, and a combination brush is good as well. And then I have just a regular fine line short-haired brush and a very inexpensive one at that. I have Jackson Richardson colors, which are come from pigments that are processed in Russia. And this is the 24 set that you can get on Amazon right now. Okay. We also have some Gonzai colors here. This is taken from my set, and it's an individual little square. And I have a mixing tray. Rice paper that's not very absorbent, and a paper towel. This is an ink cake. You can see it's very nicely used. This is from Blue Heron. You can also get a different shape one from Jerry's Artorama. And best thing to do is to grind ink, okay? Don't use liquid ink when you're using rice paper for the cardinal, because it can bleed, the ink can bleed, and then you'll be unhappy because your mask and eyes of the cardinal will not look like you want it to be. All right, so I'm making a dark black. With the ink cake, and I have a cover here that I can blend with it. Let me see that cover. And I want this to be fairly concentrated and dry, so we don't have that extra drop of water in this brush. All right. To paint my cardinal, I'm going to use my fingernail and sketch out the shape for the head, the little circle, and then that circle will be overlapped by an oval, like an egg shape. Once I get that egg shape here, I'm going to take my fingers and indicate with my fingers the size of that, and then move it down to where I would be placing the tail, and that's where the tail would end, and that's where it would start. Okay, so those are the 3 shapes that I need to know. You can also take a graphite pencil and sketch it in. If your rice paper is translucent, you can put your sketch underneath your paper and you can see through it. Or if you have a good idea of proportions, you can just start painting. I like to lay it out so that I make sure I have room for my tail and so on. Okay. And then this starts, my scratching in starts to disappear right away. And when I'm done with the painting, nobody knows what I've done. Okay. So I'm looking at my model here, And I see that my beak is short, wide, V shape, like that. And I'm going to do a little line there and leave some room for the markings of the cardinal. And right above the midline, I will put a little dot for the eye. Okay, and I want to make that eye small because it's right now just a marker. When I'm done with painting all the red parts, I will go back in and put the mask of the cardinal in and make the eye bigger and maybe even do a light for the eye in white paint. Okay, so this whole area I'm leaving out for now. And that gives me room to make adjustments. Okay. I'm going to put my fine line brush aside for now and go back to it later on when I do more details. I'm going to switch to my regular size brush and I'm going to paint in red. So this Jackson Richardson colors allow me to do 2 tones of red, and I'm going to even grab a little bit of orange here. So I'm going to double or double and a half load my brush, and I want to load it with a lot of pigment, and again, not a whole lot of water because I want that deep red of the bird to come out. And I have a little bit mixed here that's dried from another time. We'll add that to it at the tip of my brush. And I'm not going to be too concerned with difference in tone, right? I can layer it because my paper is the kind that I can go into it after I've painted and make different tones. Okay, this is a little wet here. You see the shininess. I can take my brush like this and get rid of any extra moisture that I don't want. If I find in the end that I took out too much moisture, I can go back in and spritz it with water if I've gotten it too dry. Okay. So first thing we want to do is paint the head, and I might be able to put that crown in at the same time. We'll see what happens. So I'm going to go right into that beak area, and then with the pointed brush, move out towards the back and up. Yep, I can do that. Come back down, get the back of the head and into the wing, the area for the wing. Okay, so like that. That's stroke number 1, like a number 7 almost. Are we seeing this the way you should be seeing it? Okay. Next, I'm going to go into the bottom here. And remember, as I said, when it's winter time, the shape here leaves the neck. It's more like a Hershey's Kiss than a circle and an oval because those feathers are filling in. So the wing is about 1/3 of the way of the depth of the bird in the side view, as we learned from John Muir Laws, and then the rest is belly. So I want my tip to come into that area, and I want the heel of my brush to be where the belly is because that's from darker to lighter. But I have to be careful how much I tip my brush. If I tip it too hard, I'm going to end up with a huge, huge belly. So it will be a slanted stroke. I want you to be able to see that. I'm going to follow the shape here of the bird. Like that. Okay. So in 2 strokes, we have the head, the neck, and the wings. And second stroke, we have the chin and the belly. Now this stroke already helps to indicate where we're going to put our tail. So we're going to measure that. Make sure my body is at least twice as long as the head. If we paint it any shorter, then we're going to end up with a juvenile. And the juveniles don't really have all this red on them. So that would be kind of incorrect. Juveniles are colored in brown and gray tones because nature doesn't want the predators to come and eat them. They want them to, nature wants the babies to blend in with their environment. Okay, so there and there again is where I want my tail to end. I like to paint my tail from outside in so that my tail can be have a lot of energy. So I'm going to turn it upside down so you can see me paint it. Okay. And you can do this in, let me show that. There we go. In 2 strokes. 1 and 2. Like that. Okay. I'm going to turn it back the correct way. Yeah. Now I want to unite my body parts with the tail. So I'm going to spread my brush out a little bit and just tap in some short strokes here to show feathery downy parts of that bird. And then drag from here down too. Okay. Now remember I said this bird is chubby, right? So my bird isn't very chubby looking. I want it to be fatter. I like the shape, got the neck and got the head and everything else kind of nice. And I want to emphasize that crown. So before I take some color up, I'm going to make that crown a little bit more emphasized. And now I'm going to take out some of the color of off my brush. I'm going to dip it into a little water. You can see that here. Make that watery. And now I'm going to dry it off on my paper towel. And I'm going to broaden that belly. And then attach these parts here. So now I have to make the color of the beak. It's dried off enough here. So clean off the color of my brush. I'm happy with this. And get some yellow. And I don't have to go in too deeply. It's just a tiny little beak. I have some other yellows under here. I'll show you. And this is my second row. And I have a nice little red there that I could have used for some of my details on the bird. Okay, so just a tiniest bit of yellow from here to here. Paint in my beak. 2 strokes. Okay. Then I'm going to switch back to my fine line brush. I'm going to wait until that yellow dries a little bit because I don't want it to get runny, right? Okay. Refresh my brush with ink. And I'm going to tilt that a little bit. Right now he looks like he's standing up pretty straight, so I'm going to tilt it so that he's like facing this way. In my example, the toes are really too short. The toes should be the same size as the head, but here's where they come out, after the curve of the belly. So here's the curve of the belly, and then the toes come here. Now, the most you want to do is the ankle. And the foot and the toes. But in this position, you might even just put a little tiny bit of the foot and the toes, or not even any of the foot, just the toes, because it's a small painting. So let's see what we do. Okay, here's the edge of the belly, and I'm going to paint the toes, which are in 3 parts. I'm going to overlap my toes. Okay, so that's 1 foot. I'm going to match the other foot to match this one. I'm going to come into the body here, and then that's the foot, and then the toes come here. Okay, like that. And I'm going to take this ink and now go back into my bird and paint the mask. The mask looks like the number 7. So find the beak and cover over that beak. Do a number 7. There. Attach the beak. I'm going to clean up my brush. And if I want to get more detailed, I can blend it a little bit like this. Use what I have on my brush to indicate some feathers here for the wings. And then some primary and tertiary feathers. You don't have to do any of this extra stuff, right? But if you want to get more detailed, you can at this point. Make that look a little blurry there. Okay. And finally, we will paint in our branch. So I have red on my brush. Red and green make brown. or if you have a brown already in your palette, you can just use that. Also, black and orange make brown. But I have this nice brown here, so I'm going to use that. And my toes are in front, right? So I come right through that. And add my branch. And we're going to pretend the branch goes underneath here and comes out there. All right. So now we have our very proud looking male cardinal. Let's take these parts here and we're going to put holly on them. Okay, so I'm going to stop the video and I'm going to do a separate one on how to paint holly.